Something has changed in your marriage, but you can't quite put your finger on it. You're trying not to panic, but you can't help but shake this feeling that your wife doesn't love you anymore. Hi, my name's Nathan, and I'm a coach here at Marriage Helper. I help people every day with marriage problems, many of whom feel like their spouse no longer loves them. If this sounds familiar, then let me start by saying that I'm sorry. I know what this feels like. And let me also tell you that no matter how bad you feel your marriage is today, there is hope. We've created this video specifically with you in mind. In it, you'll discover 3 things to look for if you feel like your wife doesn't love you anymore. But first, let me take just a moment to ask you to thumb up and subscribe to our channel, as we're constantly creating new content to help people like you support, strengthen, and save their marriage. Last thing, before we dive in, there's a danger in creating videos like this. You say, what do you mean? Well, anytime you give people things to look for, there's a good chance they will see it and begin to panic. We've all experienced this with WebMD. You've got a sore throat and a runny nose, so you type in your symptoms into the search bar, and within 3 minutes, you're convinced that you've got terminal cancer with only 6 weeks to live. Don't do that here. I'm going to give you signs that your wife might not be in love with you anymore. But just because 1 or 2 of these things are applicable to your marriage does not mean your wife doesn't love you. Avoid jumping to conclusions and don't panic. Please, stick around to the end of the video so you can receive a free resource to help you actually change the dynamic of your relationship and help you cultivate the kind of love you're looking for in your marriage. Okay, without further ado, the first sign your wife may not love you is that she's distant. You say, what do you mean? I mean, there's more space between the 2 of you, and this can take many different forms. One might be that she's physically more distant. So she sits on the opposite end of the couch. She doesn't wait for the 2 of you to walk into a restaurant together. Maybe you find that the 2 of you rarely stay in the same room for very long. Or the frequency of your sexual interactions has lessened or come to a stop. All of these are examples of your wife physically distancing herself from you. But physical distance isn't the only thing to look for. Perhaps even more important to pay attention to is the emotional distance between you and your wife. You say, emotional distance? Like your conversations are less frequent, and when you do talk to each other, it's mostly about facts instead of feelings. You discuss kids, bills, work, and family. But are you checking in with each other emotionally? Do you know how she's feeling about the kids, bills, work, and the family? Have you even bothered to ask? Another example of emotional distance would be a lack of levity. When was the last time you guys had a good laugh? When was the last time the 2 of you really enjoyed a moment where you felt like you connected emotionally? When was the last time y'all just had fun? If it's been a while, and especially if your wife has ignored your attempts to connect emotionally, it could be a sign that she may not be in love with you. The second sign that your wife may not love you anymore is that she's become more self-centered. You say, well, what does this look like? Well, there are a lot of examples I'll share, but the driving principle here is that your wife's vision for her life is more about herself than it is about the 2 of you together. One telltale sign of this is a lack of us and we language. Maybe you overhear her on the phone with her mom talking about my kids' school performance rather than our kids. Perhaps you see a social media post describing my plans for the summer rather than our plans. Another sign of self-centeredness is a failure to include you in her decision-making process. You come home and are surprised to find that she's completely redecorated the master bedroom. She books a trip to Cancun without including you in her plans. Or she takes a new job without talking it through with you. Another, more obvious sign of self-centeredness can be seen in the way she talks to you about how she views the relationship. Maybe you've heard this before. I've got to focus on myself now, or I can't live my life for you anymore, or I have to do this for me. If your wife has become more self-centered, it could be a sign she's not in love with you anymore. The third thing to look for is that she's become secretive. There are a lot of examples of this. Maybe your wife has changed her passwords, assuming y'all used to share them. Maybe she's locked her phone and keeps it turned upside down when y'all are sitting down to eat. Perhaps she's not telling you where she's going or who she's hanging out with. All of these are examples of creating an environment of secrecy, and they could indicate that your wife is no longer in love with you. Do any of these sound familiar? If so, which ones? Leave us a comment and let us know. More importantly, don't panic. Remember what I said at the beginning of this video. These are signs to look for, but they by no means offer a complete diagnosis of the attitudes and emotions of your wife. And perhaps, most importantly, don't take these signs as advice on what to do to fix your relationship. They're descriptive, not prescriptive. You say, what do you mean? Well, one of the worst things you can do is to conclude that your wife is distant and then decide to suffocate her with your presence. Or maybe you've realized your wife has become self-centered and your plan is to tell her to stop being so selfish. Or perhaps you're realizing that your wife is being secretive and so you decide to try and to break into her phone or email, or God forbid you put a tracker in her car. No, don't do any of that unless you want to make matters worse. That's what this is for. We've designed a free online mini course to help you avoid the things that will push your wife away and to do the things that can actually spark some attraction back in your direction. Remember, there is hope. Our purpose at Marriage Helper is to help you find that hope and give you the tools to further live into the hope of a better, stronger marriage. We've actually created a similar video for wives to help them detect signs that their husband may not be in love with them anymore. Here's a link to that video if you want to check it out. Thanks for watching.